Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale, as well as the latest episode of Deadly Class. Like always, I'm going to talk about something that you want to listen to. You can always look at the description down below. I include a time and start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Riverdale, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Deadly Class. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Riverdale. So, time to break a lot of this episode down. A lot of interesting things. First and foremost, obviously, Archie, Betty and Jughead are working on the whole situation of the whole kill the Red Paladin thing. And of course, it would tie back to Hiram. I didn't even think about that. He is the one that kind of set all in motion. It's like, okay, these two cards, the one we got from Ricky and the one from the Warden, exact same. So to make copies, I'm like, ooh, that means there's like a whole bunch of people gunning for Archie. And it turns out like Hiram's like, oh yeah, that was before, we had our truce and everything. So I gave 3 to the Warden and I gave 9 to Tallboy. It's like, Jesus, Hiram. To be fair, it's like, I guess that just showed you how much he wanted Archie dead. Jeez, dude. I mean, I guess for one, it's like, oh, you betrayed me, you turned on me, you threatened me. It's like, I'm gonna bury you in a sense. So it's just kind of crazy to think about that. What was really interesting, because obviously Hiram's like, oh, no, let's kind of make things, I want to help out any way I can. Here's some places that you might be able to find these particular people. He even set Archie up with the gym, because I like their whole ingenious plan of like, okay, we're going to make it seem like it came from the Gargoyle King, but we're going to make it so that basically all challengers have to come at Archie. Basically, like, oh, him protecting the Iron Mountaintop. And basically, anyone who wants to take him on has to do it, no weapons, and it has to be one at a time. I thought that was so genius, and it's basically like, if he stands the tide, that means none of you can come after him afterwards. I also thought it was kind of interesting, they actually gave an explanation. It's like, oh, we ended up finding out there's at least 10 other cards out there, so it's like, why haven't the other 10 people come after him? Why did it take this long for Ricky to come after him? Because basically you have to wait. It's like a quest almost in a video game where it's like you have to get to this certain point in the game before you unlock that quest. It's like such a high level quest that it's like you have to work your way up to it. So that's why not everyone had necessarily gunned for him at that time. But I guess the others kind of like, I guess what Jughead opened it up to be like, if you got this quest, you can come challenge Archie now, essentially kind of bypass a lot of stuff. Or at least everyone, was biding their time and preparing to be ready for this high level quest. Is kind of what they were better saying it as. But Archie ran the gauntlet, took down everyone, got a little messed up. One of the dudes even bit him. I love that the final challenger was a guard, and he's like, oh, this is for the Warden, which is almost make it sound like, oh, you're blaming Archie that the Warden's dead. It's like, that was kind of on his own hands, but it's more so like, oh, I'm doing this for the Warden. The fact of the matter is, I'm finishing this game essentially for him in some twisted logic. But I do like that Archie took a lot of those people down with like one blow. The first dude he took down with one hit, because Archie was known for having powerful hits, and even took down the final guy being like, that one's for me. And it's like, yeah, Archie cleared the board, meaning that no one's coming after him now, because basically now that the challenge is over, because it was like a 12-hour period. After that, there was no point of coming after him anymore. So now that that's kind of spread around that he won, like, it clears it, at least for now. I mean, because the main person because I was wondering, because I kept being like, why does the Gargoyle King want him dead so much? It's like, no, it was Hiram at the time using the game to his advantage, especially considering like Tallboy was quote unquote the Gargoyle King at the time. So it's like, that was more so Hiram's manipulation. It wasn't even like, because I was about to say, like, why would the Gargoyle King go out of his way to target Archie in particular? I thought it was more so about the game. Obviously, the game played into it, because Archie's kind of like, the symbolism in the game as he is, for Riverdale. So I thought it was kind of that angle, but it was like, no, that was just Hiram playing into it. Now, what was also interesting is that Hiram gave him the key to that gym. And it's like, oh, yeah, this is yours, which is like, yo, that's pretty dope. I guess you could make it, what he was going to do with Ricky, of like, oh, train him up and stuff like that, spend time with him. Maybe we'll see Archie potentially doing that. Like, because obviously he's kind of been lost until now. He doesn't really do the music thing as much. I mean, to be fair, he's with Josie, and so, like, obviously that music angle is always going to be there potentially. But he needed to find something else, an outlet for all that he was dealing with and feeling. So obviously this could work out for him, like maybe have his own gym where he trains and prepares other people and stuff like that. What's interesting though is Hiram's like, oh no, think of this as kind of like me giving back for me setting this all in motion, and there's like no strings attached. But it's like with Hiram, you never know. I don't know whether he's wholeheartedly being like, I got to make this up to Archie. But to be fair, I don't know. Because obviously this truce isn't going to last forever. Something's going to break it. I don't know why. Maybe Hiram will try and go back on his word, or maybe he'll manipulate Archie into breaking the rules, essentially, and then he'll have free reign to go after Archie. I don't know. It seems like he's kind of calmed down a bit, so it doesn't look like he's all gung-ho about killing Archie. I mean, Archie did save his life and everything, but to be fair, Archie was trying to kill him at the time. Granted, he doesn't know that. Maybe on some level he does know, but he kind of lets it slide. Either way, I'm very interested to find out, like, what that ends up turning out to be. Like, whether Hiram is really just going like, oh, no, you can have that, but we'll have to see. Other things that went down in this episode, the whole Reggie and Veronica thing of, like, Reggie wanting more responsibilities. And that was something I was interested in, because I was like, Reggie kind of felt unappreciated, because, like, I'm doing all this stuff for you, Veronica, and it's not like you're giving me any responsibilities. You're making me do, like, these smaller jobs. I want to be business partners with you and stuff like that. But Veronica's, like, basically the mentality of, like, the only one that should be at the top is me. I don't need to be sharing that with anyone else. The only one that needs to be walking on water around this place is me. And you know, Reggie just felt underappreciated. And for him, he was like, I don't want to just be someone who does these small jobs for you, this and that, and also that you occasionally have sex with. And that's why I was like, oh, so you're not boyfriend and girlfriend? That's like, I guess we never had that moment of it becoming official. And I guess maybe in some way it was kind of a boyfriend and girlfriend thing, but they never really explicitly talked about it. But I guess for Reggie, he just felt like, oh, it's just kind of sex between us. So for him, it's like, I wanted there to be more. I thought he was going to bring up I think that's what he was alluding to, but I thought we'd be more. And I want more from this situation. But Veronica was like, you know, I mean, she got pissed at him because Reggie trying to, like, because for him, it's like, I'm literally getting nothing out of this situation. So it's like, hey, I'm going to go try and steal my car back. Gladys caught him, which costs, you know, Veronica, because it's like, now, like, you know, I'm having less money coming in now to continue paying off my dad and Gladys, and I was all on Reggie, you know, so it's kind of sad, because for Veronica, it's like, I literally broke up with Archie not that long ago, so I'm still taking things slow, but for Reggie, it's almost just kind of like, you don't appreciate me. So what she did, bought him back his car and everything from Gladys, and it's like, yeah, here, you can have your car back now there's nothing binding us together. And it's like, oh, that's sad, you know. And it's like, because for you can almost look at it as one, and I'm sure Reggie could look at it like, it's like, oh, I guess you never really cared for me like that. I guess I was just something, you know, because I'm sure for Reggie, it's almost kind of like, I guess I was kind of your rebound, you know, and it's like, that's all there was. I'm sure for Veronica, it was more, but once again, it's like, she already put her heart out there for Archie, and that's been a thing for a while now. Let's not forget, that's been a thing for a long time. So it's like, of course, you know, you're young, you're in love, like, coming back from heartache like that at such a young age, you could say puppy love, whatever, but the fact is, they went through a lot together, so obviously you're going to be super reserved about putting your heart back out there, because you don't want to get hurt again, you know, like, it's a self-defense mechanism. I mean, I guess you can make the argument, probably that's something she kind of got from her family, in particular her dad, that whole situation. So we'll see in the end what ends up happening because of that, like, whether, like, they ever find their way back to each other. Backs. I don't know. I pluralize. Made it plural. Ugh, sorry, I can't talk today. But nevertheless, I thought that was really interesting. Like I said, I'm interested where that ends up going. I was surprised that she ended up telling Betty the truth about Jughead's mom, because let's unfold all that. It's like, lo and behold, bam, it turns out it was Gladys who bought Alice's house. Did not see that coming, which made that situation awkward, because it's like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess she wouldn't know that was Alice's house. Maybe Alice had put it up under her maiden name. So it's like, oh, it's not Alice Cooper, it's Alice Smith. Must be a different Alice or something like that. Or maybe she just, well, because she probably might not have, well, because she tried to sell it as Alice Smith because she doesn't want anyone to know. Because it's like, oh, the murder house. So maybe that's why maybe Gladys is just like, oh, it's a different Coop. Well, she knew Alice back in the day, didn't she? So, well, I guess maybe she's known her as Cooper for so long she forgot her maiden name. Or maybe, you know, she sold the whole thing like, you know, not using her name anymore just because, you know, Betty kind of sabotaged it a lot, so she probably didn't even try to use Alice Smith. She might have just, or maybe she just used her last name. I have no idea how she went about selling it for Gladys not to know that. And it adds this awkward situation to it, because it's like, oh yeah, I guess let's not forget FP and Alice. And it's like the house is also a little burned too, so it's like, oh, you know. And it brings up some interesting things, because for Alice, it's like, so what about us, FP? And he's like, you know, it doesn't matter how I felt about you because it's over now because my wife's back. Because for him, it's like, this is a chance to get my family back. Alice is like, she literally left you. And he's like, no, that was my fault. I was a terrible husband. I was a terrible dad. This is my chance to get things right. That's why he wants to fix his marriage. Because it's like, we never got divorced. We are still, you know, legally married. So it's like, let me give this opportunity to not only, you know, repair our relationship, bring our family back together. Because for such a long time, that's what Jughead wanted, you know? And it's sad because, you know, Because especially in the circumstances Alice is in right now, with the whole farm situation, you can make the argument, like, obviously she's cutting ties a lot with her past, but the fact that she brought that up makes you think, like, there's a part of her holding on to the whole, FP situation. I mean, let's not forget, that's still kind of fairly recent for them, too, kind of picking things back up. I mean, they had the whole thing back in high school, too, like, then, there's the whole Hal situation with Alice, and then there was the whole Gladys situation with FP, so it added complications to that, but there's always been something there, I mean, we see that even more with the whole Midnight Club situation. But the point I'm trying to make is it's kind of sad because you feel like FP might be the one thing that could kind of ground Alice and keep her 100% kind of from falling into that whole farm situation. I mean, granted, she's like 99% there, but it just feels like he might have been that one thing to kind of pull her back where Betty couldn't. Maybe a combination of the two of them could, but it seems like that's not going to be the case, like I said, because, for FP, it's like he never even thought he'd make it to 50, because it's like, nah, like, I thought I'd end up getting killed or maybe even drinking myself to death like my dad. But for him, it's like, for the first time, I'm able to put a roof over my kids' heads, like me, like actually, because for him, it's like now he gets to do honest work as the sheriff and do a good job at being a husband and a father. He gets to get things right this time. And, yeah, it gets complicated because the whole truth about his mom, he ends up learning from Betty. Interestingly enough, I thought about this. Betty was like avoided telling him that it came from Veronica, because I think for him it's like, because you could tell Veronica kind of felt bad because like Jughead not knowing the truth. Because of course Jughead's going to figure out, to be fair, Jughead was already suspicious of his mom being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get a job here and Jelly Bean's going to be in school. And he's like, yeah, oh, that sounds nice, but is it true? Because even he was kind of suspicious, because he was like, because it's not like he's just the writer of the family. He's the detective of the family too. He could definitely smell there was something suspicious here. And I think hearing it was kind of a shock, but at the same time I was like, yeah, I kind of figured my mom had other ulterior motives. And for him, it pisses him off because it's like, you made it seem like we're the reason why you came back. It's like, no, because you were trying to an opportunity. But getting back to what I was trying to say, Betty didn't tell him it came from Veronica because, like, I'm sure in her, she knows that Jughead probably wouldn't listen if it was like, oh yeah, Veronica's the one that gave me this. He's like, no, we can't trust her. She'd be doing anything to protect her dad, even though in this case she wouldn't be. Like, even though her and her dad have the complicated relationship they do, Jughead would think that would just be her kind of stirring the pot. So he wouldn't have listened as much, but, hiding that fact that it was from Veronica, I think probably made things better, like made it more believable. He did reach out, get the Serpents to look into it, and did find out she was behind it. She tried to be like, the fact of the matter is, me and your dad, we did a lot of terrible stuff back in the day to kind of get to where we are. We scraped and scrounged and we survived and we managed to get here right now, and we're kind of basically moving on up in the world and stuff like that. And Jughead's like, Dad, wouldn't want to be a part of this situation if he knew that this is your true motives behind everything. Because she's like, oh, I wanted to get our family back together and stuff. It's like, no, don't sit there and lie to me, because let's not forget the conversation she had with Jellybean. It's like, oh yeah, you've got your dad wrapped around your fingers. Even she was kind of manipulating Jughead, because that was the thing. Jughead was like, me and you literally have not sat down and had a conversation about why you're really in town and stuff like that. That's what kind of made him suspicious and everything. Didn't never tell him what she exactly had planned. But now it's like, don't lie. Like, this for you is about power and position. This isn't about like trying to get your family back together. Maybe on some level you do believe that, but I think it's a byproduct, like you getting ahead of it again. Once again, because she had that whole chopping shop back. I mean, also what happened to your kids back there? What happens to them? I guess she's waiting for her to kind of build this empire, and then she's going to bring them all in to kind of do this, or do they scatter to the wind? Because that's something that hasn't been brought up either. I don't think she's talked. Maybe she has, and I missed it, but I don't remember her talking about whatever happened to the other kids that she had working at her chop shop for. And she's like, oh, I sold it and everything, which I don't know if that's even true. She might still be doing that on the side too, so it's just probably lies upon lies upon lies. And so now it turns into a complicated thing of like, oh yeah, you can tell your dad the truth, but if you did, it would break his heart. Like, basically he fell apart last time, and it took him a while to get to a good place where he is right now. If you tell him the truth, he might not come back from it. And it's like, that's shitty on your part, kind of putting that weight on your son. But I think it's because Gladys knows how to manipulate Jughead. She knows, like, hey, in the end, like, once again, she's going to justify being like, I am doing this for my family. It kind of works out in the end, so who cares what I'm doing? But for Jughead, it's like, because that was the thing, like, the Serpents never did anything criminal like selling drugs. That was something FP, that's something Jughead's against. Like, he wanted them to, and that's the whole reason why they're working as deputies and stuff like that, because it's like, or junior, deputies and stuff like that, because they're trying to find an honest way, an honest purpose in life, just like FP did, becoming sheriff and stuff like that. Granted, there was more manipulation and stuff like that, but he's taken this negative thing and he's turned it into a positive thing. And that's what Jughead said at, his birthday party, being like, the fact of the matter is, everyone kind of written you off as just this and that, but it's like, you've shown them differently. You've changed your story and you become this great and honest person. Like, the fact is, your story is the most fantastic one, to see how much you've changed and the person that you've grown into, trying to right your wrongs, do the right thing. So, and it's like, I'm proud to be your son. And he could have said something about Gladys, but he didn't, especially at that moment in time. So it's like, me, Mom, and Jelly Bean will always be here for you. So, like I said, it's just a messed up thing that she would put that weight on her own son. But this is because I think she knows that Jughead would never want to do something that would hurt his dad in the end. So, but together with Betty, he's like, let's, I'm going to, get my sister, protect my dad, and kick my mom out of town. You want to help me do it? And it's kind of nice to see them kind of working together as a team to do this, It's interesting because it's like, you can't help but kind of think of like Alice and FP in that certain regard. Obviously, like I said, just the whole complicated nature of like, but, obviously it helps that the fact is, obviously, like the Midnight Club episode, they were obviously both playing their parents and their parents' younger selves in high school. But nevertheless, it's a whole thing. It's just kind of nice to know that these two are going to be working together to do that. Granted, how they're going to go about that and what's going to be the end result, like, I doubt it's going to be that easy, but we'll see in the end. Because if Gladys does get taken down, you kind of get the feeling like someone else is just going to take that opportunity. We might see Hiram be like, oh yeah, let me sweep in and get that back all up, and now we have him back in control, and that's a whole thing on it. So, like I said, we'll have to see. It's going to be complicated because Jughead's like, oh, we're going to get Jelly Bean, but it's like, Jelly Bean's neck deep in this with your mom. She spent all this time with your mom, so a lot of your mom's corruptible stuff kind of wore off on her. I mean, to be fair, like, Jughead, like, yeah, his dad did some stuff here and there, but it never rubbed off on Jughead. Like, Jughead's always kind of been true to himself. Like, he's had some complications here and there, but it's never been to the extent you would think, like, Jelly Bean is with their mom, with Gladys. So that's not good. Like, Jughead's probably going to try and swing Jelly Bean onto his side, and she's going to play along, but it's probably secretly going to be like, no, I'm secretly working for Mom. I don't know, like, because obviously Jelly Bean hasn't been around for a long time, so Jughead doesn't know her, just like he doesn't know his mom. It's been such a long time. There's no telling, like, how much Jelly Bean's changed, which we kind of see she probably has, so... Like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see how things play out in that regard. Then finally, there's a whole thing between Cheryl and Tony. Kind of figured things would kind of go down to that route. Even to the point Cheryl was going to be like, oh, for one, it's like, we find out Tony was paying Nana Rose rent. There's the whole situation of like, oh yeah, you see Cheryl kind of pissed to see Tony up there dancing and singing with Veronica. It was more so like, oh, I thought you would be hardworking, being basically bodyguards at the place, but it's like, no, you're up there singing, having fun, well, you should be doing all that potential with me. Because for Cheryl, I was like, oh, I set up this vacation for both of us to go away to, but it's like, oh, you're hanging out with the Pretty Poisons. Obviously pissed Cheryl off to the point Cheryl was going to plan to rob the place, and it was casing the joint, and Tony sees it, and it's like, which for me, I'm like, Veronica's kind of one of your friends. Like, I mean, I know you and Veronica have a complicated relationship, but you're both good, and so for you to be doing that makes me go, that's kind of super messed up. But it was all for the purpose of for Tony to see, because she's like, oh, I knew you'd catch me, and then they kind of have like, I guess makeup sex. That whole situation, I guess, which I'm sure for like Cheryl, because the whole thing was just to get Tony's attention. It's kind of like, ooh, the thrill of it, of just kind of like, oh, kind of get things hot and spicy, essentially, on that type of situation. So there's that. But what's kind of sad about it, because even Tony's like, the fact is, you're just, because I'm in control of the Pretty Poisons and you're not, and she's like, no, you're wrong, which I think that's true. Like, legitimately, Cheryl's a bit of a control freak, because even Tony's like, the fact is, we live in your room, your house. That's why she wanted to pay rent, because she wanted to feel like there was something there that was her. She just felt weird, kind of like Cheryl, kind of like, because it almost feels like, she didn't say this, but I think for her, it's probably a situation where she feels like Cheryl's keeping her like a doll or a pet. It's just kind of like, oh, you're my thing, like amongst all the things I have, you're kind of almost another thing. I know that's super messed up, but I feel like Tony probably looks at it like that, like, because if it was a space that was kind of both of theirs, maybe that would change things. But I mean, which the argument is like, Cheryl would be like, that is our place. But the fact is that you have such an issue with it must mean you didn't want to move in together, which I guess for Tony, it's like she was kind of swept up in, the honeymoon, and all that she was kind of like, honestly, maybe I shouldn't have moved in. Maybe it was too fast. And she's like, well, you can move out now. It's just like, it's kind of sad. But I think it's because Cheryl's the type of person who loves with all her heart. You know, obviously, like, the only other person she's loved like this was Jason. And so I think when she loves, she gets a little bit obsessive and she wants you all to herself. Because, like I said, she's controlling, but it's also, it comes from a good-natured place. But obviously, like, love that enters into that obsessive nature can be bad. But like I said, we have seen that Cheryl can be obsessive, you know, so it's not the most healthy way to go about a healthy relationship. So there has to be some, like, because for Tony, she feels like nothing's hers in a sense because it's all like Cheryl's in some way. Because even the Pretty Poisons, it's like, well, that was something Cheryl got me. So it's like, I want something of my own to have without you getting it for me. That's why she wanted to pay rent, just to be like, here, I'm doing something, I'm contributing something. I want some semblance of me, because she almost probably feels like outside of the relationship, she doesn't have an identity. And that was the whole point of the Pretty Poisons, is like, she wanted an identity because she felt like the serpents were her identity for so long, you know, so she wanted to kind of distinguish herself. And after all that, kind of finally having her identity again, being in this relationship like this, probably kind of strains that aspect a little bit more. So I just thought that was kind of fascinating. Obviously, Cheryl kind of handles it the way she does. She kind of gets a little mean where she's telling Kevin, hey, we're doing Heather. Oh, you're doing some other play for the farm? Change that. We're doing Heather, and I'm going to play the role, and you're going to direct and stuff like that, which you see Kevin getting bothered by. I'm wondering, is this farm situation going on? I mean, we've seen what kind of person Kevin is with this whole thing, but maybe he's going to treat Cheryl differently. I wonder, is the farm going to try and come after Cheryl now that, like, oh, you're in a vulnerable space? I don't know if that's going to necessarily work, because Cheryl's too stubborn and hard-headed, and she's too, like I said, too much of a control freak to let anyone else necessarily control her like that, potentially. So we'll see what's going to happen. I wonder, is the farm going to get involved in that, because especially because the farm is like, no, we want things a certain way. I guess they want to make a production and stuff like that because they want to kind of get word out and then kind of bring more people in. But if Cheryl's doing her thing, that's going to complicate things more. So I get the feeling like the farm's definitely going to be getting involved, and we might see Cheryl kind of butting heads with the farm, which, hey, might work out for Betty, because that means she has an ally in kind of handling this situation potentially. She already has allies, but getting another one, kind of powerful ally like Cheryl, I think will turn the tide to a certain extent. Either way, I'm very interested to see where all this is going to take us going forward into the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of Deadly Class. A lot of things went down in this episode we are going to have to break down. It's interesting because Lynn started the episode with that whole lesson about, you know, love kind of almost being a weakness because it's going to leave you open. I love that moment. She's about to strike Marcus and Maria blocks it, but it leaves her open. And that's kind of a big metaphor for the entire episode, because that's a lesson I think everyone ends up suffering because of. It's because your love leaves you open to the point. Like, I think Lynn's trying to get that point across, but even he falters at that point too. There's just so much that went down in this episode. I like the interesting conversation between Lynn and Marcus, because Marcus is like, you said all this stuff, but Jurgen's kind of like, what Jurgen said about this whole situation is right. Because it's basically like, oh, you fed me this whole, like, BS story of peasants rising up. The fact of the matter is, when you're talking to me, you're talking to your past self. Because when you look at me, you look at who you used to be. And, you know, for Marcus, it's like everything for him worth dying for is at this school, you know? Because it's like when it comes to the people that people who are worth dying for, then that's what you'll ultimately do, is kind of what Lynn's saying. Like, because as an assassin, you need to kind of put that aside. But once again, it's just hypocritical, considering Lynn, it's spouting bullshit. It's, contradictory to his whole situation. But we'll kind of dive into that in a little bit. Well, hell, let me just bring it up. The twist of, like, okay, he's going to have to be the one that puts down Gal, because the guild doesn't know about what happened. Because we still don't know, like, maybe I didn't really understand what the whole full story is about Gal and her son. So it seems like her son was sacrificed, and she looks at, she's like, oh no, there's good that was done because of my son's sacrifice. So I guess there was a time when things could have, like, basically Lynn didn't stand up for her and her son had to pay the price or whatever, and she, you know, being like, okay, I learned my lesson, this is what has to be, you know, this is the price that must be paid. And so Lynn, it's not fair that he gets to have his child and his wife. He gets to be happy when she had to make a sacrifice because of the temple and stuff like that, losing her child like that. So I think, because that's what, you know, Lynn's wife was kind of saying, like, in the end, like, Gal, you know, isn't going to, like, she's not just going to let this go because there is no balance in this. And when it's all said and done, it's up to Lynn to kind of be the one to handle this. And then he goes in and it's like, oh, Brandy and Victor there. It's like, oh yeah, he sent us to kill you. And it's like, oh shit, like we know that we're on his side. And then the twist is, it's like, oh, actually, Brandy and Victor are on his side. I was like, what? That's crazy. That's dope. Because she was talking about, oh, the fact of the matter is, I used to have, respect for you. You're my older brother and everything. But now sending children, you've lost all my respect. And he smirked. He kind of gets pissed at Victor later on, but it's like, no, the one who messed up was you, because your sister in that quick moment read that smile on your face and knew something was up, and so they didn't kind of do what they needed to do. Granted, it left them kind of stuck in that room, and even Brandy's like, did we bet on the right horse? And Victor's like, no. It's like, dude, I didn't see that come. I was like, it's gonna be kind of sucky if you have to sit there and kill your students, but it's like, shit has hit the fan. It's like, I didn't expect them to actually be on Lynn's side. I guess for them, they thought Lynn would win this whole thing, so of course they're going to side with him, I guess. It seemed like Gal was, but I guess they had faith in Lynn. I wonder what made them decide that. I guess because he's the one that taught them and everything. Either way, that's interesting. All the while, because it's interesting and it's kind of sad, like, he asked Saya to look over his family. Granted, Saya didn't know how important that house was. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm in servitude for you because you took me in, you made a promise. Basically, until I return to Tokyo, I'm basically your blade to you. So it's like, he didn't explain like the importance of that place of like, oh yeah, this is where my family is, because that'd be giving out information he doesn't want to use. Because I guess it's like, giving that information out just to anyone, even if it's a Saya, would kind of be some weakness or something for him. It's like, because he looks at Saya as like his loyal blade. But the fact is, Saya isn't just the person she was kind of at the beginning. It's like Marcus coming to this school changed a lot of people, And like Saya, because that's the thing, Saya was torn between her responsibility to her friends, in particular Marcus, as well as her responsibilities to Lynn. So she ended up choosing them, and that ended with Chico's dad showing up, and he was going to kill both his wife, Lynn's wife, and their daughter, simply because it's like, it's not like, oh, this is going to return the favor, but at the very least, this is going to teach the person who wronged us to kind of basically make them suffer. That's the whole point of it. And when it was all said and done, like, they try to fight their way through it, but just to protect their daughter, his wife stood up in front of the bullet to take the shot. It was like, Jesus. And Lynn was able to get his daughter out in time, but Chico's dad and his men are coming after him hard. Like, obviously all of this is set up by Gao and everything, so he's definitely going to kill his sister now too, because it's like, because of her. And also, what's this going to mean for Saya? Like, they're doing their whole situation, which I'll dive into in a second, but then like all of this is happening. It's like, that sucks. Interestingly enough, everything that's happening with Marcus, Willie wanted to back out, because for Willie, it's like, there's plenty of stuff I would die for. There are plenty of causes I would die for, but there are not any I would kill for, because he wants to be a pacifist. And he's telling Marcus, it's like, the fact of the matter is, like, I got to get away from all this. It's toxic. He's telling Marcus, it's like, you put on the mask of a hero and stuff like that, but Marcus is like, I do it because maybe it's my way of trying to pretend, like pretending to be a hero, because the option otherwise he can't deal with that. And it's like, we're supposed to be friends, but Willie's like, if this is what it takes to be friends with you, then maybe we shouldn't be friends, essentially. And even Saya being like, you know what Marcus did for you. And it's like, because if you run, you will be regretting it for the rest of your life, is what she told Willie. Because Willie was like, yes, but first blow, yes, that was for me. I'll always owe him for that. But the second blow, that was for Marcus. This place changed him. It changed all of you. Because the fact is, his mom sent him there to be a man, because Peter Pan. And it was like, that no matter what happens, Peter Pan can never be a pirate, was kind of the story. And I was like, oh, that's such an interesting thing. I guess for him, it's like, he's like, I'm come here supposed to be a pirate, but Peter Pan always kind of stays on his path of never wanting to grow up. And I guess for Willie, like, crossing over and becoming a pirate would be what King's Dominion wants you to be, this killer and all of this. But he decides to leave with Gabrielle. We actually kind of, I don't know if his sister's ever come up in conversation before, because it turns out she has a place in LA and stuff. Like, he plans to go there for a fresh start. But there's even that moment when they're leaving for a gas station, he sees like this dude being mugged and his kid is watching. I'm sure it's reminiscent of his own past. And Gabrielle's like, we'll kind of call the police and report it when it's all said and done. But you can tell it rubbed Willie the wrong way, because it's a situation of there's someone in need. Like, no matter what your pacifist nature is, the fact is there's someone there in front of you that needs help, and you're just going to leave them behind just because you're afraid to take action. Because it's something Marcus had said. He was like, if you don't fight for one side, you choosing not to fight just means that you're supporting the other side because you're letting them win because you're not willing to fight. So it's like, in that same regard, it's like, yeah, you might not be, wanting to participate in it. So it's like, oh, you're not hurting anyone, but you're basically letting them win. The people that are beating up this man in front of his own child, potentially doing worse later on, because, it's like, it'd be like a repeat of your situation. You're going to let some kid grow up because of circumstances that were very close to your own, That's how I look at it. So I'm curious to see in the end, will Willie kind of go through this, or will he second guess it? I don't know. Will we see him kind of break the pacifist route, or will he try and help in a pacifist way? Have no idea. Side note, I'm totally skipping over the fact is that whole little musical number that Chester and his people had at the beginning. I even love his mom celebrating. It's like, oh, that dude died. Look at him. My own little personal Rambo. It's also interesting, too, because Shab was recording conversations. But, because Marcus was piecing it together, he was like, yeah, this is at Shab's house. I was like, you've been talking to your parents about me and stuff like that? He never got an answer because Maria showed up. I love that as being like, oh, yeah, basically it's like, oh, you're keeping all these secrets from me. It's like, yeah, I just didn't think you can handle it. She's like, oh, you thought Saya could? Well, Saya already knew about the boys' home. It's like, oh, shit. I probably shouldn't have told you that Saya already knew some stuff. And she's like, it's okay. The fact of the matter is, I trust you and everything. It's like, that turns into a whole thing. I'll get to that in a sec. But I do love that they turned to Lex and Petra for help, which they were both reluctant at first. But it's kind of interesting because Petra immediately was kind of like, is Chester the one that gave you those scars? And so, well, because did he tell that story before about the boy? I said that with the boy, the boys' home. I can't remember. I guess he told that to did he tell that to I thought he only told that to Saya or something like that. I don't remember. Maybe he told it to Billy, Lex, and Petra. I don't remember. But Lex was kind of reluctant, but, Marcus kind of tackling his pride, being like, dude, the fact is, you've got this big mouth about you being this and that. So it's like, either kind of put your money where your mouth is, and it's like, fine, I'll help out. And I'm like, yeah, the whole technical squad's together. Then they kind of go out and celebrate. Marcus was going to stay with Maria, but it's kind of torn between because he's torn because he wants to help Maria. That's his girlfriend. She's in this emotional state. But also at the same time, it's like Saya is literally putting so much on the line because it's not only like, oh, yeah, you're my whatever happens to you happens to me, so I gotta look out for your best interest type of situation. But it's also because Saya is like, so much weight is going to fall back on her because it's like, if anything happens to the rest of y'all, like, things will come back on me, and it's going to be on me if things kind of fuck up. So go ahead, do what you have to do. But he shows up later on because he didn't want her to shoulder it all on their own. It did kind of surprise me when they did make out, though, because Marcus was like, I know nothing about you. You know everything about me. And it's like, that turns into that whole thing. He's like, oh, what did I do? And then he sees Saya, and he's like, that's not Maria. And he's flipping, and he's like, and he's running. He's like, you fucking idiot. He's kind of yelling at himself because it's like, you cheated on your girlfriend. You're the person you did. You're the piece of shit that you never wanted to be. You're that person you're the type of dude that you hate. And just him like running and losing his mind. But he's like, the fact of the matter is, Saya's eyes, they kind of like burn into him, make him feel like she can make him feel complete, that there's something there. I am curious how Saya really feels about it. We kind of see her roll over and kind of look at him. And I think for her, it's kind of like, I think there's a part of her probably be like, well, shit, I just slept with my complicated best friend's boyfriend, who I definitely, you can obviously tell, kind of had a thing for. But for him, it's just kind of, holy crap, because, it's just like, oh, dude, it's like, that's a complicated situation to find yourself in. And it just like, he's running, grabbing food, eating, he's drunk, hungover, it's just the worst. Which is so sad because they had such a great and amazing time. I love because it's like, yeah, let's not get metalheads involved in, like, because it was kind of like a mosh pit without being a mosh pit. I forgot what she was kind of referring to it as, but it's like pushing this stuff around. Even Marco was like, some dude who was like, the scariest dude ever picked me up and we were dancing. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like, oh, there's some camaraderie within it. Like, it wasn't what Marcus thought it was. It's kind of neat to go from that to like shit. He opens up the comic book shop, and then he's just like, at it. The kid's like, you promised you draw this. And he's like, hey, I was like, you're literally going to try and fart in the kid's mouth? Come on, Marcus. Tell me that's just in your head. You're not actually going to do it. And it turned out not to be the case. He literally shits himself. I'm like, this is fucking happening. What the hell? This show continues to be weird and crazy, and he's literally shitting himself, and he tries to clean off, and then everyone looks at him like, yo, what the hell? I love Billy telling him later on, it's okay, dude, everyone kind of shits themselves or something like that. Even the whole thing of like, oh yeah, we haven't seen Saya. You guys seen Saya? It's like, oh no, we haven't seen her since last night. She was with you last time we saw her. And you have Maria looking like, what? And then when Saya shows up at the end of the episode, be like, oh, he's like, I'm so glad you showed up. You see Maria be like, dude. Craziest love triangle to find yourself in. And I think, I think things are a little bit awkward for Saya too. I even love that was it too. I'd almost forgotten that he had said I love you to her. He's like, what did you say? He's like, oh, did I sound lame? And he's like, it doesn't matter how you sounded. What matters is, did you mean it? It's like, shit, dude. That's some serious stuff, dude. And then it's like, okay, let's go handle this Chester situation. It's also sad too because Sheb doesn't know that his dad's dead, which is super messed up. Circumstances that's just going down in that house. I love, like I said, I forgot to talk about it earlier, the performance, like his cousin being like, cousin, that was beautiful. Even the guy being held captive, I was like, yeah, that was really something, man. He's like, thank you. And it just kind of like, what was it? He was saying some BS about like, God smiles upon me or something like that. And it's like, wow, dude. So it's like, the crew is there. They got the explosives. They're about to do all this. I'm so curious to see what's going to end up happening because obviously, like, Saya's going to have to deal with Lynn, and that might be connected to everything dealing with Tokyo. Her supposed to be valedictorian. Like, Lynn's going to be pissed because he's going to blame Saya for this, but Saya was dealing with all, like, it's just lies and everything compounding upon themselves because it's like, because they're trying to cover up this Ochiko thing, which is no longer technically a problem because now he knows the truth. He's going after Lynn, but means he's going to be coming after Maria no matter what. But I guess you can make the argument could be that, like, they're like, no, like, Chester's the one who did this. He was behind all this. I have no idea how things are going to play out because the next episode is the season finale. I'm so curious to see how they're going to wrap this all up because it doesn't look like this might have a happy ending. Things are going to get messy, very, very messy in the next episode. And it's like, even if Marcus and them succeed, everything's kind of still shit on every other front. To be fair, because I'm sure it's going to be like a personal thing for Marcus, but it's like, will this be like his hero moment? Will this just be purely a moment of revenge? Will anybody on the team end up dying because of this? What's going to happen? Like, what about King's Dominion's future? Like, Lynn's kind of in this position with the guild. I mean, his sister's not going to say anything because if she says anything, it's just going to end up bringing shame upon the family, so she's not going to want that. What does this, mean about Chico's dad? Like, obviously, he's going to be taken out. I mean, to be fair, he's going to be chasing after Lynn. But once again, Maria, too, because of everything like that. What about Sheb? Like, he's the one that's been spying on Marcus. Marcus, will that kind of get dealt with or what? Especially, once again, when Sheb finds out what's going on at home. His dad's dead and all that, We will have to wait and see what the season finale has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good